Yeah, so my name's Russell. Thank you to all the other panelists for sharing your stories. Really interesting and inspiring. So a brief introduction of myself. I'm from the UK and I studied Asian religions at university. So I studied Buddhism and Hinduism. And then I spent a bit of time living in Sri Lanka. So I had like a really big passion and a motivation to focus my career out in Asia. During that time when I was at university and living in Sri Lanka, I was lucky to learn Sri Lankan, and I also learned Sanskrit and Pali, which was a great experience, but ultimately not very helpful. So, I was reflecting on which language I could learn to really develop my career and give me the chance to move out to Asia. And naturally and obviously I chose Chinese. So I actually started working in London for L'Oreal. And when I was working, I was taking evening classes initially at SOAS, so at the School of Oriental and African Studies. I did that for about a year or so, and then I really wanted to accelerate my learning of Chinese. So one day I just went onto Google and put in there homestay families Shanghai and found a very small website that was helping connect people that wanted to arrange a homestay experience in Shanghai. So I got in touch with them and they found me a family, and I went out and spent 2 weeks living with that family. And I remember my first day when I arrived at their front door and thinking, this is going to be crazy. I'm not going to speak English or hear English for the next 2 weeks. So I was very nervous, but I was also extremely lucky because the family were absolutely amazing. They were so friendly. They didn't speak any English at all. So I was really, under pressure to use and learn my Chinese. But I had such a great experience with them on my first occasion that I couldn't wait to go back. And over the next 4 years, I went to visit them, I think 12, 14 different occasions. I went out to China and spent 2-3 weeks living with them and also taking classes at the school called That's Mandarin in Shanghai. And it was an incredible experience. And I think ultimately, it links to what, some of the things that you need to think about when learning Chinese or any language. And it's exposure. You need as much time as possible living in that culture, hearing it every day, seeing it on every subway sign, hearing it in every conversation that you walk past. That's absolutely critical, I think. And if I hadn't spent that time living with the homestay family, I would never have got, the level of Chinese that I was able to achieve. I think also critical in it was being a bit uncomfortable. So I put myself in what I found to be a very uncomfortable situation at the beginning by turning up at a family's house that I didn't know and was going to only be able to speak Chinese. And, it was so rewarding to take a bit of a risk and be a bit uncomfortable at the beginning. And I got a huge amount in return from doing that. Today, I'm living and working in Singapore. So I still haven't achieved my final ambition of working in China, but I'm getting closer. And I do still use my Chinese on a day-to-day basis. So I speak it with my colleagues in the office. In Singapore, there's many signs and things that are written in Chinese. I can talk to taxi drivers. I can order my food. So this is all a nice way just to keep my Chinese up and running. But I do get a chance to use it in a professional context. So I work a lot with some of our partners in Thailand. And sometimes I end up talking to our shop staff and they speak better Chinese than they speak English. Because obviously there's a lot of Chinese tourists that are going to Thailand. I find these unexpected moments and opportunities where my Chinese suddenly becomes very, very helpful. And when we were struggling to talk to a store staff about the sales, I realized I can switch into Chinese and actually we can find out the information that we want to find out. The body shop today, who I work for, isn't actually based in China. We don't open yet in China because of some regulations, but we're hoping that will change. And then hopefully I'll get a chance to come up to China and work in China sometime in the very near future.